We received a very tragic piece of news while editing for this video was underway. Kevin Conroy, the voice actor for Batman in both the main trilogy of these games, as well as quite a number of other DC projects going back 30 years since his time on Batman the Animated Series, has very sadly passed away. Kevin Conroy is the definitive voice actor, the definitive voice really for Batman for many people, myself included, due to all of the wonderful work he did over his career. So I just wanted to stop and take a moment to acknowledge the inspiration that he was for all of us. You will be very missed, Kevin. Hot take. Batman is pretty neato. So pretty neato, in fact, he was quite an influence on young BaneShake's Charlie. My first ever comic was a Batman comic book. In it, he defeats the Riddler with the power of OnStar's car security system features. My first comic book was an ad. Batman was such an innately neato character that, honestly, he changed the course of me, BaneShake's Charlie, as a gamer. See, my first dedicated gaming console was the Wii. I obviously loved my Wii, and things like Lego Batman, which I played on the Wii, really helped exacerbate my superheroic interests. But the Wii was missing something. Batman. I mean, not Lego Batman, but we've been over that already. Keep up. Right in the thick of my growing, girthy Batman interests in 2010, I came across a video on YouTube of some sort of wild scarecrow mission from a recent game, Arkham Asylum. I had seen a poster for it up in a GameStop, but otherwise had no knowledge of the title, so I watched a trailer or two. Fine. It was all of them. I watched every trailer. I went through Arkham Asylum's news article history on IGN so I could watch all the trailers. I was significantly interested, but small problem, Arkham Asylum was the Batman missing from the Wii. I had been working a summer job and so had sufficient cash to my name, and after some significant research between systems, I decided it was time to get myself a PlayStation 3. That's right, if it weren't for Batman, I would have been some sort of Nintendo fanboy. A fate worse than hell. It was worth it, and Arkham Asylum was great. Honestly, out of the game series that have meant the most to me personally, the Arkham games take the top spot, right above Assassin's Creed at number 2, and TT's LEGO franchise at an extraordinarily close number 3. Assassin's Creed got me started on a briefish history videos here on YouTube. My most recent episode at this point covered Freedom Cry, if you're so inclined to check it out. I may someday briefish historically cover the LEGO games, eventually, but Jesus H, there are a lot of those and I don't dare touch that pile until Ascreed is more firmly under control. Arkham, thankfully, is much more manageable and it was due time for me to replay these. Again, anyway. So I figured I might as well make something productive of my efforts and start inserting them in the middle of my other uploads too. Without further ado, this is a briefish history of the Arkham series. Really? You need me to explain this guy to you? Fuck off. No, you don't. I am not playing this game with you. You know goddamn well who this guy is. He is one of the best-known characters in fiction. I'm definitely not just covering for the fact that I have no idea who this is. Before I can discuss Batman superiority, I have to discuss Batman mixed baggery. Batman has a history of decades of games. Some of them are decent, for people already interested in El Hombre Murcielago, and some of them ain't. Licensed titles were not exactly known for high quality, for the longest time in gaming. Foreshadowing. Here's a few quickfire examples of his pre-Asylum titles. Lots of beat-em-ups. This one's adorable. This one, he just straight up guns people down. This one is trying to be non-lethal Mortal Kombat. This one is Lego Batman, but we've been over that already. Keep up. This one is one of the worst games of all time,
And also, you can fail to save the world in the end if you fail to do an unmarked quest the game doesn't tell you to do. Neat! This one is of significant note. Batman Begins, based on the movie of the same Batman Beginning, had a couple seeds of ideas that'll come up pertinently. There was a dedicated, specifically Splinter Cell-styled stealth system, and the game used the idea of building up fear in your enemies to change their behavior in stealth or to one-hit KO the last guy in a fight. That too is foreshadowing. There was almost an open-world game for The Dark Knight, which got scrapped because there wasn't enough time for the developers to get their shit together for it. And while this might have been cool to see, it's frankly a good thing it didn't, because publishing rights changed after its cancellation, and this little-known game called Arkham Asylum was able to be made instead. One other thing, before there was Arkham Asylum, there was Arkham Asylum. That is to say, there was Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum, a serious house on serious Earth. Previously, often just called Arkham Asylum, without any modifiers or the subtitle, until someone went and stole its popular colloquialistic thunder. In it, stop me if you've heard this one, several villains take over the titular asylum in a prison riot, and Batman has to go in and face down these villains in succession, and all the while, the story is slipping in details about the historical founder of the asylum caught up in the same systematic cycle of violence and madness that plagues the story generations later. While the narrative and cast of villains are significantly different, it's still clear as fucking day the spiritual inspiration here. Even if the team hadn't openly discussed it, which they had, Grant Morrison's DNA coats every inch of these archaic halls. Hell, the already borderline horror game only scratches the surface of the comic's surreal psychological terrors, with nightmarish imagery including Batman impaling his own palm with a shard of glass to enforce lucidity, a Clayface withering away from his powers as though he's diseased, the eye of a girl's decapitated head peering out from the window on her dollhouse, and Joker slapping Batman's ass. One other thing, this game was written by Paul Dini of Batman the Animated Series fame, with a handful of other voice actor alums. Kevin Conroy's Batman, Mark Hamill's Joker, and Arlene Sorkin's Harley Quinn. And if I don't point it out, I guarantee the comments will be flooded by people doing so for me. Yes, you can smoosh Mark Hamill's name together and make Arkham. You don't have to spam my comments with that fact. Wink. Unlike Assassin's Creed, which introduces gameplay changes and updates more often than your stepmother introduces suspicious rashes to the other participants at a sex party, it's very easy to distill the core Arkham experience down to its solid base elements. For one, while the game worlds got progressively bigger each time, the series holds pretty firmly to a Metroidvania style of design. That is to say, Batman looks great in a Zero suit fighting Dracula. Wait, shit. Not that. That is to say that certain areas are blocked off until you can come back later with the right tool. The sandbox worlds here famously do a lot of environmental storytelling and are packed with attention to detail. Free-flow combat is legitimately my favorite melee system in any game, and I am quite good at it. It has a very simple core, so anyone can pick up and understand the basic principles, but there is a metric bat ton of depth and strategy from there. At its simplest, you can punch, you can counter when thugs punch back, you have a stun attack for enemies that block normal attacks, and you can dodge for attacks that cannot be countered. If someone is stunned on the ground, you can do a ground pound to knock them out instantly, but it requires enough time that you risk getting interrupted if you don't have the distance from the other thugs to pull it off. There are also dedicated buttons to quickly use specific gadgets during combat, such as batarangs. Once you have that down, you can focus on building combos. Doing these correctly makes the number go up, but getting hit or failing to make your next move drops you back down to 0. Precise timing makes your combo rise faster, because at set numbers you have the option to do one of several special combat moves, most significantly an instant takedown. Between the combo building and knowing which option to use for countering any situation, it shares a lot of ideas with fighting games, although it is considerably easier to learn than those. Interestingly, Rocksteady's original inspiration was rhythm games, only instead of, say, moonwalking to the beat, you're shattering a motherfucker's coccyx to the beat. Playing well does make the whole system look like a big, beautiful choreographed fight scene, until you get down to one lone bastard who will go down in a single hit. Unless you're like me, wherein you subject him to unnecessarily drawn out options just to make him hurt worse. The other main gameplay loop is the Predator stealth system, and no, it's not the kind of Predator stealth your uncle keeps subjecting unsuspecting cousins to. This system is legitimately my favorite stealth system in any game, and I am quite good at it. Because Batman's weakness is getting shot, except when it isn't. Anytime there are a significant number of guns in circulation, you have to cling to the shadows, taking dudes down one by one. The basics carry through to all entries as well. You can start silent takedowns from behind, or around corners where they can't see you, and since Batman is non-lethal, it takes a few moments to choke them unconscious. Some moves are faster but louder, and so reveal to other goons that you are around somewhere. Most iconic is the inverted takedown, where you scoop someone up onto a vantage point, such as a gargoyle, and leave them hanging by their feet. There are tons of others though. Pulling dudes off of ledges, blasting dudes off of ladders, exploding walls that are so old the emerging cloud of lead and asbestos almost certainly just gave that poor fucker 6 different types of cancer, that sort of thing. Because Batman has his grapple gun and his gliding cape, there's much more verticality than a lot of stealth games allow. Just as significant, the more dudes you take down, the more scared they get and their behaviors change. If they don't know of your presence, they're calm and either stationary or doing slow, predictable patrols. For the first couple of knockouts, they get nervous, scouring the room and cooperating to find you. Once they're terrified, they get erratic, abandoning each other to their fates, turning on a dime at every little suspicion that you're right there, and pissing their jumpsuits implicitly. It forces you to keep your strategy flexible, as a plan that works when they're calm may not work when they're twitchy. The rest of the gameplay comes from general exploration and puzzles. Batman has a detective mode which shows enemies and objects of interest via glowing. Occasionally there will be explicit detective segments, although early on the series was guilty of just telling you to find the glowy bit, and then you just follow where the Batcomputer sends you. They improved from there. Navigation is also a big part, mostly using the aforementioned gliding and grappling, and various collectibles and challenges will be littered throughout, most significantly the iconic green Riddler trophies. Also, if you die, the villains make fun of you.
Oh, isn't that cute? Little bats are sleeping.
Outside of the main game worlds, there are character models you can view from the story, and you horny bastards are all eyeballing Harley Quinn, aren't you? There are also challenge maps adapted mostly from environments in the game to push your free flow or predator skills to the max. Free flow maps give you up to 3 medals per your score, so you want to prioritize high combos and variety to maximize points. And predator maps give you medals to complete 3 explicit tasks and track how long it takes you to finish everybody off. That's the crux of it all. So without further ado, let us enter the asylum. That was cool. I don't usually have fancy segues between segments like that. Hope I don't ruin my momentum with some dumb meta joke or something. Shit. So yeah, after the Dark Knight game was canned, everyone's favorite publisher, EA, neglected to renew the license to the Batman IP, and Eidos swooped in. They went to developers Rocksteady, who, at the time, had only released a late-era PS2 first-person shooter about cops in some sort of possibly satirical near future, but they had impressed Eidos with a third-person game demo, apparently on the basis of attention to detail, which is very on-brand for what Rocksteady would be known for, following. They decided to do an original story, instead of tying it into any other continuity, roped in earlier stated creatives, and coerced one sucker into working for 2 years just on the cape physics and animations, and the rest is a briefish history of the Arkham series. Obviously, the fundamentals all apply here, so I'll specify some specifics that apply specifically to this specific game. Batman has 8 gadgets, some of which have to be upgraded. There's a Batarang, there's multiple Batarangs, shut up, it's in a different spot, so it's a different gadget. There's a remote control Batarang, and there's a sonic Batarang you can use to lure henchmen to a specific spot during stealth. An upgrade also lets this one explode once for a free knockout. Batman also has non-Batarang options too. His grapple starts off pretty basic until he slaps a claw on the end to pull down people and objects, and later he just jury-rigs 3 grapple guns together to pull down more people and bigger objects. There's explosive gel, which he obsessively only ever sprays in his own logo. Bruce, we are on a deadline here, which can take out weak walls. A cryptographic sequencer lets him hack security controls by squiggling lines until they explode, and the line launcher, which moved Batman in a straight line in Tim Burton's Batman, is present too. You'll never guess what it does here. Oh cool, sure am glad Batman can move forward at a moderate speed. Thanks, Tim Burton. Enemies are just diverse enough to keep combat dynamic. There are normal thugs, who are normal, but can take opportunistic strategies like chucking boxes at you or pulling pipes off the walls to increase their melee damage. High security thugs carry 2 knives, cannot be countered, and block your attacks if you don't stun them first. Midway in, stun batons are introduced and can be picked up by any normal thug. Trying to attack from the front will shock you, so you have to strike them from behind. Lunatics have been lobotomized to the point of being completely feral and will try to strangle you. They also typically only go down from ground pounds. Finally, we have Titan thugs. Big ol' massive boys who basically just act like Rhino from most Spider-Man games, either running at you or throwing shit, then running at you. You can make them vulnerable by bataranging them in the face and then riding around on them for a bit. What really stood out to me on this replay, trying to think analytically and all of that shit, is just how simple this game is in comparison to its successors. Don't get me wrong, it's only something you'll be aware of if you've played the others, or if some jackass points it out to you on YouTube and then you go to play Asylum and then god damn it now you can't stop noticing it. For example, look at the gliding. Later games let you change your angle and likewise speed and momentum while gliding. In Arkham Asylum, you're either gliding or you're not. None of that extra stuff. It mechanically functions the same way as Lego Batman. The simplicity really carries over into combat. Unlike later entries, the combat takedown isn't the default move. You start out with a combat throw and have to unlock the takedown. These aren't as distinct as they could be either. Either the thugs are reliably knocked out next to you, or they are less reliably maybe knocked out over there, and maybe you also stun someone else unless you missed. These are also your only 2 combo special moves. Arkham City and Origins both give you 4, and Arkham Knight gives you a whopping 8 combo special moves, plus environmental takedowns which are not based on your combo, but rather on proximity to objects which it would be funny to slam a gangster into. Even the movement during Asylum's combat feels simpler. Batman's just a little slower, and it's very strict on using the moves, exactly as described, without any improv. Later games give more explicit risk-reward opportunities in combat, like how you can beat someone to the punch, quite literally, if you hit them right after the counter icon flashes above their head, but trying that nonsense here will punish you. Gadgets are also limited in a fight. You can only quick-fire the Batarang or the Batclaw, meaning everything else is pretty unsuited for fisticuffs. There also just aren't perfect ways to counter thugs tossing the metal cases off of the wall or grabbing guns in a fight, because the window and the angle to properly dodge both are very narrow. Stealth gets off much easier. Sure, there are additional takedowns added next time, and enemy AI gets even more advanced later, but Predator stealth was hitting home runs right out of the gate. It is fun discovering so many ways to just torment thugs here, and I have definitely died once or twice because I was fucking around instead of actually treating them as a serious threat. Other than the story, things to do on Arkham Island end up being pretty limited. The side mission, singular, is dealing with Riddler. He randomly hacks into your headset early on to taunt you with a bunch of riddles and trophies he hid implicitly in the months before escaping the island. He also challenges you to destroy Joker teeth and find specific interview tapes and engravings, which he didn't even have anything to do with hiding in the first place. Essentially, the supervillain version of saying the other kids joke louder so he can get the credit. When you find everything, Batman just reverse hacks his location and calls the police on him.
Down on the ground! Down on the ground! No!
So fucking anticlimactic. Personally, I would have hidden him in a secret room on the island, so at least you can feel like you took him down. Let's jump back to those engravings I mentioned before. While technically just part of Riddler's collectathon, this is the closest the game has to a second side mission, since it is telling its own story. There are messages left behind by the purported Spirit of Arkham. These things are creepy. They start out chronicling the asylum's founder, Amadeus Arkham, in the 1920s. His mother had a mental illness herself, and his wife and daughter were brutalized and killed by the serial killer Mad Dog Hawkins, who became a patient when Amadeus opened the asylum, only to die in an accident, murder wink, during intense electroshock treatment. Amadeus' own mental state is revealed to be quite unsteady, as he begins to fixate on punishing the filth in his own asylum. Halfway into the messages, though, this same voice starts describing what you come to realize are modern-day Batman villains, and it's rapidly apparent it's some mysterious individual working in the asylum. Okay, it's actually not mysterious in the slightest. It's the Warden, Quincy Sharp. For one, it's the highly distinct voice of Tom Kane. For both,
That's Warden Sharp to you.
I am the spirit of Amadeus Arkham.
And for two, if you look at the plaque on his statue, it straight up labels him as the voice of Arkham. It's only foreshadowing in the same sense that foreskin technically hides the rest of the penis underneath. It's foreskin foreshadowing. I am a bit too proud of that term and will definitely use it again. The other additional gameplay comes from challenge maps. In addition to Batman, you can play as Armored Batman, which is just Batman but with slightly more health, and the Joker. Originally, he was exclusive to the PS3, though the remaster includes him regardless of system. He goes up against security guards, including named characters like Commissioner Gordon and Aaron Cash, in the base game challenge maps. He's slightly more limited than Batman. He has to manually put on X-ray spec goggles to use detective mode. He has a gun with one bullet, and some chattering teeth holding dynamite. He's a fun novelty, but without a grappling hook like the game has been built around, he's somewhat limited in his use. Weirdly, he is also not available in the DLC challenge maps. Storytime. Disclosure. Disclosure before the storytime. Sorry, that was very misleading of me. The simplicity I mentioned before absolutely applies here. It's not a bad plot, but it is very straightforward, and honestly, you could stick this plot in almost any other Batman canon, and it would work just fine. There are no huge twists, just natural plot developments, and there aren't even dramatically unique takes on the canon like we see in the later games. Just something I always notice in hindsight. And speaking of citing hinds, this game definitely feels a little bit too made by guys for guys at times. Some of it is certainly a product of both its time, 2009, and of broader issues fairly common to comic books, but it does struggle just a little bit with women. Look, I'm not saying there's no precedent for Harley Quinn or Poison Ivy to be presented sexually. Obviously, there is, and nowadays it's usually to say something deeper about the characters. Here, it just feels like someone was horny and the only thing deeper to it was cleavage depth. There are times and places to make things horny, and maybe the grimy hellhole of lobotomies isn't at the top of that list. Asylum also is quite fond of calling women bitches, and it really teeters on the edge of when it is or isn't justified in universe. It would be easily explained as misogyny on the part of the thugs,
So I got in my car, ran over the first bitch I saw.
or the secret serial killer who wants to murder the patients,
Let me go, you crazy bitch.
but then even the supposedly more moral characters like Commissioner Gordon do it too.
Where's Gordon?
Wouldn't you like to know?
I'm over here.
Shut up!
You crazy bitch.
Which sort of goes against any point they were trying to make. Unless they were secretly making a point about how cops are little different than the brutish criminals they act all high and mighty over. Was Arkham Asylum accusing Commissioner Gordon of falling into ACAB? I am not prepared to answer this question. Honestly, it's more likely that Paul Dini just enjoyed having fewer censors than the animated series placed upon him and let the power go to his head. That's fair enough. I too started cussing way more in my short stories when I knew my teachers would let me get away with it, and bitch is pretty fun to say, I admit. I personally just try to be a little more gender neutral when I use bitch. Enough bitching about bitches. Let's do story time for real. We start off with the bat signal shining amongst the rain, and Batman is en route to Arkham Asylum with Joker in cuffs. He had attacked City Hall. Joker did, not Batman. Goddamn syntax. Batman escorts him in, and we get a nice little stroll of exposition. Blackgate Prison, where the non-insane criminals go, had recently caught fire, and so the thugs had been moved to the asylum. We see all of the important staff, like Warden Quincy Sharp, the Warden, Aaron Cash, a guard whose hand was previously eaten by Killer Croc, and Dr. Penelope Young, a doctor. We also see Killer Croc, the man who previously ate Aaron Cash's hand, getting transferred, presumably just to establish that he is a big ol' growing boy in this game. Batman meets up with the swollest Commissioner Gordon to explain that he just went down too easy. That is to say, Joker went down too easy. We all know Batman doesn't go down. Goddamn syntax. Batman's apparently only mid-tier suspicious though, because he brought in approximately none of his gadgets with him. Unfortunately, the sensitive snowflake doctors won't let Batman escort Joker any further because he'll trigger the inmates. Literally the moment he's out of Batman's reach, Joker fucking escapes, and the security systems are locked down by Harley Quinn, who has been in the control room this entire time. Joker mocks Batman for not having a girlfriend in the control room and starts turning a whole bunch of bad dudes loose. Batman doesn't bother checking in with Alfred literally at any point in this game, probably leaving the old fella crying in front of the door like a dog waiting for his human to come home. But he does begin corresponding with Oracle, the paralyzed former Batgirl turned techspert hacker Barbara Gordon. After a brief diversion pulling some dudes out of a noxious Joker gas trap, and stopping serial killer Victor Zsasz from electrocuting a dude, Harley Quinn reveals she has captured the Warden, so now they're officially in full control, like it's a game of chess. Fun fact, real-life mental health hospitals also operate just like this. Try it. Batman corners Joker, who gives Batman a chance to fucking murder him, and boy howdy does Batman consider it for a second. Joker then lets loose a big monster guy who very quickly dies of a heart attack before Joker gets away. And Batman's like, "That was weird. I should probably look into that." Joker and Harley have Gordon kidnapped thanks to a turncoat security guard named Frank Bowles, who is apparently so drunk Batman can trace his alcoholic exhales. Harley drops an elevator on Batman by blowing up the cables, and the counterweight she's sitting on rises? That's not how elevators or gravity work. Batman finally catches up to Frank, but he's dead. The game says Joker murdered him, but I suspect it was alcohol poisoning, and Joker just took some opportunistic credit. Jesus Christ, that moon is fucking huge. Batman ignores the meteorological cataclysm the rest of the Earth is clearly dealing with, and tracks Harley and Gordon to the medical facility, where he has to save a bunch of doctors and guards first. Scarecrow gets an introduction more terrifying than several horror games I've played, and after briefly tripping balls about everyone being dead, and a showdown which, IRL, is just Batman running circles around an empty morgue like a dummy, he then gets to speedrun 2 additional villain encounters in rapid succession. A stealth room, where Harley Quinn brutally guns down Gordon if anyone sees you, and then a Bane boss fight, because Dr. Young kidnapped him from Blackgate Prison for therapeutic malarkey. Bane's a goddamn moron in this game, so Batman runs him over with the Batmobile. Don't ask how it got through multiple locked gates. If you haven't played this game, you probably want me to explain a bit about the therapeutic malarkey. See, Dr. Young thinks, since some patients are too weak for her therapy, she should improve Bane's Venom super steroid into Titan, a super-er steroid that can make them stronger. I have no clue what the fuck kind of therapy she's been giving that needs even a fraction of that kind of strength, but I don't trust it. Joker was secretly funding her for the monsters, and the entire reason he took over the asylum was to get his hands on the formula and then throw a monster mash. After rudely getting interrupted by Scarecrow making him relive his childhood traumas, Batman saves Dr. Young. Briefly. In fact, most of the time you save hostages in this game, it's pretty brief. At one point, there's a security guard whose life can actually be saved if you do some mild sequence breaking. I knew about this and let him die anyway, because it makes for better footage. I might be a bad person. Anyway, Batman fucking concusses Harley Quinn and tracks down Joker's secret manufacturing plant. But since these Titan monsters aren't heart attacking themselves like the first one, Batman decides it's worth investing in an antidote. Since he is conveniently next door to Poison Ivy, he's like, "Ivy, are there any convenient MacGuffin plants that can cure this shit?" And she's like, "Yeah, in Killer Croc's lair, bitch!" Batman leafs, but as soon as he does, Joker roids up Poison Ivy with Titan. Instead of turning into a big muscle chick, which would be hot, Ivy's vines actually get bigger, thicker, and much stronger. Which is also hot. I can work with that too. Halfway there though, the game crashes. But then it starts over from the beginning! Wait, no, it's just Scarecrow back at it again. "You can't mess with gamers, Scarecrow. That's a line too far." You get what you fucking deserve. You have to be careful in Croc's lair, because if you walk too fast, he finds you faster. Thankfully, I am an expert at Croc's section at this point. Shit. Fuck off, get in the hole. After making the antidote, Batman deflowers Ivy, and it's finally time for Joker's party. Throughout the game, the goons have been preparing this big Joker door, and you can actually go in early, where Joker has left TV mannequins with pre-recorded messages for you. These are cool, and even contain the only confirmation of Robin's existence in this canon in the game. So, you'll be forgiven for not realizing that it's really Joker this time. Or that he's got a bomb. Joker re-kidnapped Gordon at some point and thinks he should be even swoller, but Batman jumps in front of the dart. He somehow resists the effects of the super steroid, which doesn't seem medically accurate, and so Joker pretends to kill himself. I'm telling you, Lego Batman is the blueprint. Joker monsters up, but Batman takes the antidote to stay normal. So we have an intense final battle of fighting normal enemies while Joker mostly just flexes for the news helicopters. It's a pretty mediocre boss fight, all things considered. Batman explodes all over Joker's face. And like that, the asylum is secured once again. Now, the creators really hyped up this big idea during the marketing that this is the most daunting night of Batman's career, but I don't really get that impression. He was only ever momentarily not in control of his immediate surroundings, and right after literally everything he just went through, he decides he's still not had enough and flies away to fight Two-Face off-screen. This is not to say that the night was insignificant. There will be some definite repercussions from things to follow. The game even says it outright. Post-credits, one of 3 hands will pop out of the water and grab a floating crate of Titan. Scarecrow, Bane, or Killer Croc. One of these endings will even be canon for next time. There was also a secret Easter egg room, so well hidden the developers basically had to direct people to it. Tucked away next to the warden's office, there's a second secret office with blueprints on the wall for some sort of Arkham Asylum, but in the city. I'm sure it's nothing. The end. To say Batman Arkham Asylum was a sensation would be an understatement on par with calling its moon big. Arkham Asylum was drowning in accolades the way your mom drowns in pussy. And honestly, I'm proud of her. It's difficult to come out as LGBT at such an advanced age. Boom! Roasted your mom for being old. Arguably, Asylum only got outclassed as the best superhero game because the series literally beat its own record again on round 2. And even counting the best entries in the genre, 13 years later, it still really can't be kicked out of the top 4 superhero games. No, I will not provide visuals. Y'all can argue about the other 3 in the comments. Suddenly, Everyone realized licensed titles can and should be masterpieces given the right time and resources. If it weren't for the legitimacy this game brought to licensed titles, I feel like it would have been much harder greenlighting or even envisioning games such as Shadow of Mordor, for example. It probably sounds like I'm being dramatic, but the game industry absolutely took notice. So many people wanted to be Arkham Asylum. Like Spider-Man. Or, Spider-Man? Or even... Spider-Man. Huh. As I've said, Rocksteady was immediately put on the map as a creative juggernaut. They put in so much love and care into crafting every inch of the asylum, including dozens of references to villains that don't even appear in the game, that their name is practically synonymous with attention to detail. If you told me Rocksteady was developing Get Cyberbullied in First Person, the video game, I would pick it up day one from their prestige alone. Sufficient to say, I'm quite excited to get back into their titles from here. Subscribe if you want to follow me down this dark and stormy road, and drop a like to help the algorithm subject others to the asylum.